When Yugoslavia disintegrated in 1991, it unleashed one of the most diverse arsenals in modern history. This was a war where brand new NATO imports served alongside 1940s Wehrmacht leftovers. Fed by the massive stockpiles of the JNA, these weapons turned city streets into trenches. This is the story of the guns that defined the Yugoslav wars. Handguns, the last resort. Zastava M57 Tetejak. The undisputed king of Yugoslav sidearms was the Zastava M57. To the untrained eye, it's a Soviet TT-33 Tokarev. But the Yugoslavs knew the Soviet design was lacking, so they improved it. They extended the grip, adding an extra round to the magazine for a total of 9, and kept the incredibly potent 7.62 by 25mm cartridge. This wasn't a stopper. It was a penetrator. The round was famous for punching through heavy winter clothing, car doors, and even early soft body armor. It had terrible ergonomics, 0 safety features on the military models, and a trigger pull, like dragging a grand piano across a gravel road. But when you pulled it, it worked. CZ99. If the M57 was the relic, the CZ99 was the future, designed in the late 80s, just as the clouds of war were gathering. This was Crvena Zastava's attempt to clone the Swiss SYGP226. It was a chunky double-stack 9mm wonder featuring a decocker and a chrome-lined barrel. Issued mostly to pilots, officers, and special units, the CZ99 was a status symbol. It offered modern firepower capacity, 15 rounds of 9mm parabellum, in a package that was robust enough to hammer nails. In Zastava M70 Pachelica, the B, you would often find this small blowback pistol in the holsters of police officers and rear echelon commanders, chambered in .3 2 ACP 7.65mm. The little B was essentially a scaled-down version of the M57. In a war dominated by automatic rifles and heavy artillery, the M70 was barely a weapon. It was a psychological comfort. It lacked the stopping power for a firefight, serving mostly as a desperate backup or an execution tool. Zastava M83 revolver. While the East was dominated by semi-autos, the Yugoslav police had a strange affinity for the wheel gun. The M83 was a domestic .357 Magnum revolver, clearly inspired by the heavy frames of American Smiths and Colts. In the hands of paramilitary police units, these heavy revolvers offered brutal stopping power that the high-velocity Tokarev rounds lacked. Submachine guns, the Room Brooms. Zastava M56. At a glance, you'd swear it was a German MP40 from World War II, and you wouldn't be entirely wrong. The Zastava M56 borrowed the folding stock and general layout of the Nazi-era Schmeisser, but it was chambered for the Soviet 7.62 by 25mm round to simplify logistics with the pistol supply. It was cheap, stamped sheet metal, a plumber's gun, but its long bolt travel made it controllable. Thousands of these were pulled from territorial defense depots and handed to tank crews, truck drivers, and militias who needed automatic fire in a compact package. Scorpion Verse 61, Zastava M84, the weapon of choice for vehicle crews, and darker elements of the war. A licensed copy of the Czech classic, the M84 Scorpion was a machine pistol chambered in .32 ACP. It featured a rate reducer mechanism in the handle, preventing the gun from dumping its 20-round magazine in half a second. Tiny, concealable, and easily suppressed, it became a favorite of warlords and special police. It wasn't a soldier's rifle. It was a bodyguard's buzzsaw. Zastava M49, a true Frankenstein of firearms history. Externally, it looked like the Soviet PPSH-41 with its drum magazine and wooden stock. Internally, it used the operating system of the Italian Beretta Model 38. It was heavy, obsolete, and fired the Tokarev round. Yet it saw surprising usage simply because it was available. In the desperate defense of Croatian towns in 1991, a heavy M49 that didn't jam was worth its weight in gold. Arrow and Mini Arrow. When Croatia declared independence, they were cut off from arms supplies. Their solution? Reverse engineer the Israeli Uzi. The result was the Arrow, built in local workshops that were often converted tractor factories. The Arrow was a near-perfect clone of the Micro Uzi. It was rough around around the edges, but it chewed through 9mm ammo just as fast as the original. It became a symbol of Croatian ingenuity under embargo. Heckler & Koch MP5. While conscripts fought with Cold War relics, the elite units, the Serbian JSO, the Croatian ATJ Luchko, and Bosniak Special Police, operated on a different level. They utilized the German HK MP5. Accurate, reliable, and synonymous with counterterrorism, seeing an MP5 on the battlefield usually meant you were facing professionals, not drafted reservists. Assault rifles, the backbone of the war. Zastava M70 series. This is the icon, the Yugo AK. But calling it just an AK does it a disservice. Moin, the Zastava M70 was built differently than its Soviet cousins. The Yugoslavs didn't trust the thin stamped receivers of the Russian AKM, so they used a thicker, heavy-duty receiver similar to the RPK light machine gun, 1.5mm versus 1mm steel. Why the extra weight? Grenades. Yugoslav infantry doctrine relied heavily on rifle grenades. Every soldier was expected to be his own artilleryman. The M70 featured a unique gas cutoff sight. When you lifted the grenade sight, it shut off the gas system, allowing the soldier to fire a blank cartridge to launch a grenade capable of destroying a bunker or a light armored vehicle. However, the M70 had a fatal flaw. Its barrel was not chrome-lined. In the hands of conscripts using corrosive surplus ammo and rarely cleaning their weapons, many M70s turned into rusted smoothbores by the end of the war. In Zastava M59/66 PAP Popovka, the SKS refused to die. The M59/66 was a domestic version of the Simonov carbine, but elongated to fit, you guessed it, a grenade launcher spigot and a permanent folding bayonet. By the 1990s, a 10-round semi-auto rifle was hopelessly obsolete against AKs. Yet, it was accurate, rugged, and the grenade capability made it a terrifying pocket artillery piece in urban ambushes. It was the primary weapon for snipers on a budget and rearguard militias, FNFAL, and G3, the NATO intrusion. As the war progressed, thousands of FNFAL rifles, many from Argentina, and HKG-3s flooded into Croatia and Bosnia. These were battle rifles firing the heavy 7.62 by 51mm NATO round. In the open country, these rifles dominated the AK variants. Their range and penetration could turn cover into concealment. The right arm of the free world found itself fighting on both sides of the Iron Curtain's collapse, Chinese Type 56 and Albanian ASH-78. When the Yugoslav army blockaded Bosnia and Kosovo, the opposing forces took what they could get. Enter the Chinese Type 56. Distinguishable by its hooded front sight and folding spike bayonet, these weapons were generally considered inferior to the domestic Zastava rifles. The steel was softer, the finish was rougher. But in a muddy trench in 1995, a rifle that fires is better than a rifle that shines. Sniper and marksman rifles, the terror of the avenue, or Zastava M76. This was the standard designated marksman rifle of the JNA. While it resembles the Soviet Dragunov, internally it is just a massive stretched out AK. Crucially, it kept the German heritage alive by firing the 7.92 by 57mm Mauser round, the same ammo used by the Nazis in World War II. It was fed from a 10-round magazine and topped with a Zrak scope. It was simple, easy to maintain, and lethal out to 800 meters. It wasn't a surgical tool, it was a sledgehammer. M48 Mauser history came full circle. The M48 was a Yugoslav bolt-action copy of the German Karabiner 98K, produced after World War II. By 1991, these were antiques, but a bolt-action Mauser is inherently accurate. Desperate defenders and opportunistic hunters dusted off these cosmoline-soaked rifles. In the hands of a patient shooter, the M48 was just as deadly in 1992 as its grandfather was in 1942. Zastava M91, a late war attempt to modernize. The M91 was designed to finally standardize with the Soviet 7.62 by 54R cartridge, matching the ballistics of the true Dragunov. It saw limited service compared to the ubiquitous M76, but represented the shift toward modern Russian standards. RT-20, the hand cannon, the Croatian monster. Facing Serbian armor with limited anti-tank weaponry, Croatian engineers built the RT-20. This was a shoulder-fired rifle chambered for the massive 20mm Hispano cannon shell, ammo usually fired from anti-aircraft guns. The recoil was so immense that the designers had to install a recoilless rifle-style vent tube out the back to counter the force. It was impractical, deafening, and huge. But if you hit a truck engine or an APC with it and the vehicle stayed hit, Zastava M93 Black Arrow, Serbia's answer to the heavy sniper game. A dedicated .50 caliber, 12.7mm, bolt-action anti-material rifle. Introduced late in the conflict, the Black Arrow was designed to punch through walls and disable light armor at distances exceeding a mile. Machine guns, suppression, and slaughter. Zastava MM72. The squad automatic weapon. It looked like an M70 assault rifle with a thyroid problem. It featured a heavy-finned barrel for cooling, a bipod, and the same RPK-style reinforced receiver. However, unlike the Russian RPK, which often used drum magazines, the Yugoslavs typically ran the M72 with standard 30-round box magazines. This limited its sustained fire capability, or blurring the line between a machine gun and a heavy assault rifle. Zastava M84 Kesa, arguably the best infantry weapon produced by Yugoslavia. The M84 was a direct copy of the Soviet PKM general-purpose machine gun, belt-fed, firing the full-power 7.62 by 54R cartridge. It was reliable, devastating, and surprisingly light for its class. The M84 Seka was the anchor of the platoon. Its distinct rhythmic chug was the soundtrack of the front lines, capable of suppressing entire city blocks. Zastava M53 Sharak. If the M56 SMG was the ghost of the MP40, the M53 was the ghost of the MG42. Yugoslavia reverse-engineered Hitler's buzzsaw after World War II and kept it in production for decades. It retained the blistering 1,200 rounds per minute fire rate and the terrifying sound that ripped like canvas. Known as the Sharak, or the Saw, it was a logistical nightmare. It chewed through barrels and ammo belts instantly, but the psychological effect of that Nazi-era sound suppression was unmatched. Ultimax 100A rare gem seen on the Croatian side. Imported from Singapore, the Ultimax 100 is a light machine gun legendary for its constant recoil system. The bolt never hits the rear of the receiver, meaning the gun has almost zero recoil. A soldier could fire this weapon fully automatic with one hand. It was highly prized by special forces for its mobility. The Technicals and the M2 Browning finally, the heavy hitter, the American Browning M2.50 caliber. While the JNA had their own heavy machine guns, the M2 appeared on all sides, usually mounted on Technicals, civilian trucks with improvised armor plates welded to the doors. In the fluid motorized warfare of the Balkans, a Hilux or a TAM truck mounting a Madus was a mobile fortress, capable of shredding brick, cover, and light vehicles with terrifying ease. The arsenal of the Yugoslav wars was a testament to the region's history, a crossroads between East and West, fascism and communism, the ancient and the modern. It was a war where a sniper with a WW2 bolt action rifle could pin down a squad armed with modern polymer submachine guns. It was a conflict where the reliability of a Zastava AK often meant the difference between holding a trench or being overrun. Today, the scars of the war remain, and so do the weapons. Many of these M70s and M57s are still found in caches across the globe, from the Middle East to Africa, in continuing their lethal legacy long after the country that built them ceased to exist. This has been the complete evolution of the Yugoslav arsenal.